And although it's faint today, you can see a distinct Doppler as the moon moves, and that's indicative of the moon that it's very slight. Okay, well, this all started when my good radio friend Jim, GM4FVM, here's his website, which I would highly recommend to you, started to do some EME, or Moonbounce as it used to be called. And first of all, he did some receiving, then he went into transmitting, and it's all of it in his blog here, which you should go and read to find out how it's done properly. Inspired by him, I decided I wouldn't mind having a go at receiving some EME. I wasn't particularly interested in transmitting. I thought, let's start with receive. Jim seemed to do it quite easily, but then he's got much better equipment than I've got, and he's also more motivated. Let's be honest, I am quite lazy when it comes to amateur radio. These days I'm more into motorbiking and archery. So I've tried over the years with WSJTX and never had any success. I've seen a few amateurs firing up, but I've never really seen anything coming back down again that I could be sure of. So I've kind of given up. Meanwhile, my old friend since school, Ian, M0CQH, has been developing what he's called his passive radar, which takes the audio feed and gives you a display similar to Spectran, similar to the tracking on the Whisper software. I always call it the Whisper software, WSJTX software, but with higher resolution and full screen so that you can really zoom in on the detail. Now, I've only got this in 1080 at the moment, but I can put it into a sort of fake version of 4K. My monitor doesn't have 4K, but I can get it to go into 4K. So with Ian's software, which is fantastic, he's put all sorts of options in it. So that's a 4K version of the monitoring screen. Just for comparison, I can put up Spectran, which is here, which you could also use, but you can see how much more resolution. I now set Spectran to its lowest speed, but you don't get a lot. But in real time, you could watch what I'm about to show you on Spectran. It's free, costs nothing. Spectran version 2, that is. It's just the one that's on my computer. It's been on there for years. You could just use the monitor window of WSJTX. But as you can see, once they're into 4K, it's quite small and you don't get a lot. But these are all perfectly viable. If you run them in 1080, there's Spectran. You get a minute or so. I've set it on its slow speed, but you know, it's enough to see what's going on. You can take screenshots of that. And the WSJTX software, you get quite 10 minutes or so, depending on how you set the speed. Set that on 4, and you get the time. You can leave that running. It's perfectly usable and it'll work just as well. It costs nothing. But as I say, I've gone for the 4K resolution. I've also been using free software called Auto Screenshot. Auto Screenshot for Windows says it's a trusted program. I got it from this Softonic. I don't trust these sites, but it's been fine. It's a little bit tricky to set up. I had to set up a screen 2 to get it to save on the desktop, and then I deleted that screen, and screen 1 now saves on there fine. You'll have to figure that out yourself. It's quite straightforward. If you use a computer, you can figure that out. So my setup is set the computer to 4K, just for resolution purposes. Totally not necessary, but it's just better for a night of monitoring. Apply that. Turn on my auto screen capture software. start screen capture. So it's going, it's running. It saves to a folder on the screen which I've called screens, and then choose Ian's passive radar. So what happens is this runs all night. I go to bed. The screenshot software takes a shot every 15 minutes. That's the setup for recording the images. So you may or may not have heard, but there's my rotator controller. Using software recommended me to by Jim many years ago. I do set it up to track the moon as tracking. The elevation at the moment is 14.2. As you can see, it's 10:10 local time and currently aimed to 40 degrees, which is outside the range of the station that I am or have been receiving very, very weakly, but it's there.
Cloudy day. The rotator just moved. That's in the direction it's pointing. We've got lots of trees and cloud.
So what is this station? I've never heard of it. You're all going to go, oh, I've heard of that years ago. I know all about that. Well, I've never heard of it. So what it is this Graves system, which is a transmitter which fires from, let me get it right, from east to west, I believe, facing south and firing at 30 degrees into the sky, designed to track or detect space debris. Unfortunately, it's on 143.050 megahertz, so you don't need much equipment to have a go at receiving it. I honestly think you could do this with just a Yagi in your garden if you were willing to stay up and point it at the moon. I'm fortunate in that I do have the rotator and the rotation software as recommended to me by Jim many years ago when he first went into EME. But you don't need that. You could just use a Yagi and sit it in your garden. In fact, in some ways, if you're willing to stay up all night and point it manually directly at the moon, you probably get better results. I've only been doing this for 2 days, so what I've got is pretty limited, I think, but I can show you that I'm definitely receiving signals from the moon. So use the Graves system. It's a transmitter in France. Don't know what power it is, but it's military, so you can bet it's high power. Its receiver is, I think, hundreds of miles away, which collects reflections from space. So it'll be over the radar, it'll be over the horizon from this transmitter. So this is timeanddate.com. So this is where the moon is at the moment with me. It's at 14 degrees altitude, which should match up with my rotator, which it does at the moment. But I think it's now out of range of that French station. Also, the sun's up. It's raining and sunny, it being June in Britain. So I think it's too late in the day now to get any more images. So I set it all running with the auto screen, saving screens into a folder. Here's last night, the moon. They're just desktop shots using Ian's radar software. And I can visually go through. These are likely either meteor pings or aircraft, and they're on the frequency for the Graves transmitter. And then at about, you might see it in a minute, there we go, I can see faint, you probably can't see that, but at 16, 17, 18, 1800 hertz, as the first trace of the Graves signal. It's quite distinctive because it's looks like dots. It's gone again, but there it's back, and it's Doppler shifted. These days you don't even need much of a radio. I'm using this dongle, which is a RTL SDR blog, I think it's called, V4C anyway, and I'm using AirSpy SDR Sharp, tuned to 143.048 so that's 1500 hertz below the carrier, or the pulsed signal anyway, from the Graves transmitter. That's it. Feed that into whatever monitor software you're using. You could of course use a standard radio. Here's my faithful ICOM IC7100, tuned to the same frequency, works just as well. I like the SDR because it's compact and it all runs from the computer without a separate power supply. Just to show you a demo, I'll stick on my Leo Bodnar RF source, which is around here somewhere, and you'll see it energize and then track till it gets its GPS signal. Yeah, this is not a good way of showing screens, is it? Should use screen capture software, but as I say, quite lazy. So there's the Leo Bodnar local RF source displayed on Ian's passive radio, Ian M0CQH. Here it is displayed on Spectron. So you can use Spectron for this just as easily. And here it is displayed on the WSJTX software as the signal. So any of these display programs will work, but Ian's is the only one that I know of that does it in 4K, which means you get much higher resolution and it's easy to see very, very weak signals. So shut that down, shut that one down, shut that one down. Go back to Ian's and you can see how that Leo Bodnar has locked onto GPS and is now disciplined. And you can also see that presumably the RTL is slightly off frequency. So at this stage, the moon elevation 19.3 and I'm aimed at 216 degrees and the meteor pings have stopped. I think that's because I'm now attenuating the Graves signal. So just following the moon. Presumably the moon at some point will pass beyond the Graves transmitter and that will be the end of it. But keep going. It's 10 to 9 in the morning and still got a trace. So that's the 341 and it's gone again, and at 4:58 it's reappeared and it's shifted again. .630 it shifted again, very faint but it's there. And at 9 o'clock it's shifted below 1500, so it's about 1430 hertz. And there's a nice clear trace there, again about 1425 hertz. You can see it's slightly diagonal due to the Doppler shifting of the moon. I'll put these images in properly and maybe put them in as an animation. I leave the rotator software showing so I can see where it was. So it's quite a high elevation, 26.5 and at 213, bearing of 213. And there's a nice clear trace. So even in the daytime, you can see it tracking down. That's now 10 o'clock in the morning. more or less, you can still see it tracking across. And at 10:30 or so, 10:20, I lost it here. So that is how I have been able to receive some EME signals for the first time in a quite lazy way. Anyone can do it. I thought it worth sharing. I'm sorry I don't make many videos on amateur radio these days. I'm just not very active. But thanks to Jim originally, and especially Ian with his software, and he pointed me at the Graves transmitter, which I had no idea. Apparently he knew about it years ago, but I didn't know, or he told me and I hadn't listened, more likely. There you go. Have a go. It's straightforward. Brian G0 MJI 73 and out.